What kind of airbender doesn't even fart? Not even once. Oh, and spoilers. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes, I'll talk movies all day, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about The Last Airbender, the 2010 action-adventure movie based on an anime series, or for the purists, based on a cartoon series. Everybody hated this movie, and considering how much everybody loved the series, yeah. But now, more than 10 years since it was released, was it really that bad? So the movie starts off pretty much the same way the series starts each episode, with a history lesson. I guess they had to put the words on screen because Katara didn't bother to learn her lines. Matter of fact, I'm not sure anybody bothered to learn their lines, but anyway. Now before we go any further, are we really supposed to believe that her name is Katara and his name is Sokka? Nah, these guys look more like Katie and Simon. Anyway, Katara, I guess, is narrating about how there's a war, their dad abandoned them, their mother died, and how food is scarce so they go hunting, but Sokka isn't the best hunter in the world. Now I have an issue with this phrase. When people say things like, he's not the best hunter or he's not the best swimmer, there could only be one best anything in the world. Everyone else, by default, isn't the best. So when you say he's not the best, is he number 2? Number 3? Is he anywhere in the top 100? Because that's still pretty damn good. Now I know people use this phrase as a way of saying he's pretty bad at hunting. I understand that. However, you don't get to talk about someone else's hunting skills when you suck at waterbending. Like, learn how to waterbend a fish out a river, then you can say something. Also, from time Katara threw frozen water on Sokka, he should be dead from hypothermia by the end of the movie. But even though Katara sucks at waterbending, that water bubble was dripping and making all kinds of noise and Sokka couldn't tell it was coming, and especially when apparently he always gets wet. Are you dumb? So Katara and Sokka are looking for a tiger seal, but instead find a boy sealed in an ice sphere. Now apparently Avatar Aang has been in that sphere underwater for 100 years. Okay, but what made the sphere rise out of the ground? All Sokka did was hit the ice layer with a boomerang. Are we supposed to believe that in 100 years nobody hit the ice with anything? Like maybe their feet when running, looking for tiger seals? But when it does rise out of water, Sokka does say something smart.
Don't go near it. This is probably some Fire Nation trick.
Katara ignores that, grabs the boomerang, runs straight to the sphere and starts whacking it. Are you dumb? And when the ice comes apart and they find there's a small boy and a giant dog inside, they take them back to their village during a time of war, where they still don't know if it's a Fire Nation trick or not. Are you dumb? Also, how did they get Appa and Aang back to their village? Because the next scene suggests that he was still semi-conscious by the time they got Aang back. So did they carry a small boy and drag a giant dog all the way home? Bear in mind they didn't realize Appa can fly until after they got back to their village, so that ruled that form of transport out. Or did they wait until Aang regains consciousness and then took them back to the village to rest properly? Because if that's the case, then why is Katara asking him questions that she could have asked him along the way? Aang said that he ran away from home and was forced under the ocean. Katara says,
"Oh, I see."
But let's back up a little bit. How did Aang survive the ice sphere? Nothing about being the Avatar suggests that he wouldn't have been frozen to death or run out of oxygen and suffocate. He can't airbend if he's asleep, and it's not like he has Captain America's super serum to keep his blood at an optimal temperature. This boy should be dead. This girl is looking directly at the camera. By the way, I know we only see the back of his head, but Zuko was not speaking these words.
Uncle, look!
The fact that Prince Zuko had to announce himself means that none of them actually know who he is. And if they don't know who he is, why are they doing what he says? And if they do know who he is, then surely they know he has no real authority. So again, why are they doing what he says? Are you dumb? So firebenders turn up at their village and demand to see their elderly because they think the Avatar is a 100-year-old, which, well, he is, but you know. Anyway, they still find Aang because he's dressed way different from everyone else. Now I know, they wouldn't have had time to get him new clothes, but they could have got him to hide somewhere where he wouldn't have been spotted so easily. Like, literally this dude is sitting right in the middle, not even hiding behind somebody. Are you dumb? By the way, are we really supposed to believe that everyone in this water tribe are from the same part of the world? Really? They take Aang back to the firebending warship, and are we really supposed to believe that this is Zuko and Iroh? Nah, these guys look more like Zaid and Iqbal. They give Aang a test and he passes, which means he is the Avatar and as such is now their prisoner. But Aang escapes because nobody thought they should cuff his hands and feet first. Are you dumb? Katara wants to go of killing all the firebenders for taking Aang because Aang is their responsibility. How exactly is he your responsibility? Literally just met him today and the first thing he did was started making trouble in the neighborhood. And aren't these guys supposed to be like 14 or something? So what's all this talk about killing? She can't waterbend and he can't even catch fish. And you think you can take on a whole army? Are you dumb? And then the grandma, who's supposed to be looking after them, actually encourages this foolishness? Are you dumb? They go back to Aang's home and there's no one there. Aang thinks they must be playing tricks on him and Monk Yatso is going to jump out and try to scare him. Why? Why would you think that? I mean, considering the circumstances in which he left, I'm sure they'd be happy he's returned, but they might not be in such a playful mood, you know what I mean? And also, for Monkey Yatso to jump out of a bush to try and scare him, he'd have to know exactly when they'd be getting Aang back. Now I know Aang was in a sphere and he hasn't fully grasped how long he's been away. In fact, he thinks he was only gone for a few days. So, does Aang think that Monkey Yatso is gonna hide in a bush for a few days just to jump out and scare him like he ain't got nothing better to do? Are you dumb? Also, Grandma told Katara and Sokka that Aang could be the Avatar, and they already know that the Avatar disappeared 100 years ago and that the Fire Nation killed off the Airbenders. So, in the time it took to fly on Appa from their village to the Air Temple, Katara and Sokka didn't think they should let Aang know what happened to his home. They just let him turn up and unsuspectingly walk on the bones of his friends. A minute ago she's talking about how he's their responsibility. Now, nearly 20 minutes into the film, turns out they don't even know his name yet. Are you dumb? But when Aang does walk out on the yard where all the skeletons are, Katara finally tells him that all the air nomads were killed by the Fire Nation, and Aang shouts, "You're lying!" I mean, he can see all the skeletons, right? A lot of evidence, like, right there. Don't need a lawyer for this one. But to be fair, he has every reason to not trust Katara since she let him get his hopes up just to capture his grief and pain on video, so yeah. By the way, are we really supposed to believe that this is Monkey Yatso and Aang? Nah, these guys look more like Mike Gibson and Andrew. Sokka gives some more good advice that Katara once again ignores. Aang goes to the spirit world and sees a dragon, which I guess is supposed to represent Avatar Roku. Anyway, Aang gets shook and assumes a fighting position. But what's this? Before, Little Man was doing all these Shaolin moves. Now he looks like the only training he's had was watching the first 2 Rocky movies. And boy, why you think you can fight a dragon? Are you dumb? Katara watched Aang float in the air and light up like a Christmas tree and still doesn't know that Aang is the Avatar. Seriously, what do they talk about between scenes? Do they just stare at each other and wait for the cameras to come back on? Are we really supposed to believe that this is a picture of the Zuko family? Did the artist run out of brown paint or something? The dad in the Earthbender prison camp told Aang that the Fire Nation came with machines made of metal and there was nothing they can do. Couple of things. Just because you can't earthbend metal, don't mean you can't sneak in and stab them, or earthbend the ground to flip the machines over. So yeah, there was something you could have done. And a whole village of earthbenders, and not one of them realizes metal comes from the earth, and as such, you can earthbend metal. Are you dumb? So anyway, all the earthbenders are in prison with earth right beneath their feet, and it took a pep talk from a 12-year-old kid who's been gone for 100 years and has no real clue what they're up against or how much things have changed in the time he's been gone before they can finally get brave enough to fight the Fire Nation guards. But it seems the firebenders can't create fire, so they have a burning bin to bend fire from. So, wouldn't the first thing you should do is put out the fire? Katara with the water bending, Aang with the air bending, this fight could have been over real quick. Where was Appa the whole time they were in the prison camp? Appa could have flown in and rescued everybody, but he didn't. I sure hope he apologized afterwards. So Katara becomes a master waterbender because Momo just happened to knock over the rare scroll. The scene when they're planning out the rest of the movie is so awkward. A lot of scenes in this film are like this, but this is by far the most awkward scene in the movie. You get these extreme close-ups on their faces while these poor kids have to act like everything is so urgent, but it's just awkward. But you know, perhaps there'll be less urgency if they didn't waste so much time. I don't know what language that was in the poster, but I would guess it's not a language Katie understands. But why is Katara putting up posters of Aang? They got a long way to go to the water tribe, and there's no way they're gonna get to the other tribes in this movie, so maybe don't draw unnecessary attention to yourself? Are you dumb? In fact,
Sokka became concerned we were being followed.
gee, I wonder why. Kuwana Xiao is the only one in this movie acting with any intelligence. This kid knows all about what happened to Prince Zuko, but doesn't recognize he's talking to Prince Zuko. Also, is this supposed to be when Zuko was banished? If so, then how long has he been searching for the Avatar? Fire Lord Ozai might be an arsehole, but at least he's patient. I swear every movie I see Randall Duck Kim in, he plays old man alone in a room. When the blue Zuko spirit rescues Aang, he only cuts the chains from his wrists, but not the ones on his ankles. How does Aang's glider work? If he's holding it, wouldn't the rods cut through his hands when it opens? After the blue spirit rescues Aang and gets knocked out by the arrow, I understand Aang is going to be curious about who the blue spirit is, but maybe wait until you're not being chased by a whole army of Fire Nation. Are you dumb? Remember when I said Zhao was the only one acting with intelligence? I'ma take that back. Zhao suspected that the blue spirit was Zuko, and as such, would have known that he wasn't going to kill the Avatar, and even if the blue spirit wasn't Zuko, he must have known someone ain't gonna go through the trouble of rescuing someone just to kill them, especially not when he's surrounded by a Fire Nation army and the person he's holding hostage is the only one keeping him alive. So why let him go? Why not just call his bluff? Because even if he did kill the Avatar, yes, that means they'd have to look for the Avatar again, but they already know it goes to the Water Tribe, and they would have captured Zuko, which means there's one less person getting in their way. Are you dumb? I'm sure I'm not the only one who noticed the back of Princess Yue's head looks like a penis. And are we supposed to believe that this is Princess Yue and Master Pakku? Nah, these guys look more like Patricia Yarley and Matthew Pecker. So Sokka volunteers to be Princess Yue's bodyguard. Will have something to say about that. Are they really gonna let this stranger turn up out of nowhere and guard their princess? The boy can't even catch fish. Are you dumb? By the way, Sokka said the Northern Water Tribe was led by a princess because her father died. So is her mother not around to take charge? And if not, then how come she ain't Queen Yue? Somebody screwed her out of a title. Zhao has gotta know that Iroh would at least suspect he killed or tried to kill Zuko, so why invite Iroh to join him? So in the beginning, Katara said,
Sokka, don't.
And now Yue says,
Loved spending these weeks with you, Sokka.
And he didn't correct her. Now I know he got them feelings in that special region for her, but still, you gotta set boundaries. I mean, you can't hunt, you can't catch fish, you wanna be a simp too? Come on. What was the point of Zuko getting changed? Not only does it waste time, he actually changes into something that would make him easier to get spotted. Are you dumb? Also, where did he put his boots? Aang says that to get the tattoos, you gotta meditate for long periods of time without losing focus. But as soon as Yue and Sokka leave, the first thing Katara tries to do is distract him. And when fighting Zuko, she's a competent waterbender now, but still, can you just put out the source of the fire? Are you dumb? Zuko captures Aang again, and this time cuffs his hands, but not his feet. Are you dumb? And bear in mind that Zuko thought that Aang was still unconscious. Was he just staring out the window and talking to himself the whole time? Are you Actually, you know what? You might want to see somebody. So we know that General Iroh is a secret good guy, but they don't know that. So once again, Sokka gives more good advice, which once again gets ignored. But at least she says his name right this time.
My people are dying, Sokka.
I guess they had words off camera. Good for you. Even though everybody still pronounced his name incorrectly from the series, but fine. The waterbenders could have just drowned the entire Fire Nation army when they turned up. This fight could have been over before it started. Why is Zuko all of a sudden scared of fire? Zhao fell down before the water hit him. I don't know, maybe he slipped. So this whole thing about bowing to the Avatar and the Avatar bowing back, what purpose does that serve? Regardless of who bows, he's still the Avatar anyway. The movie ends setting up a sequel that never happened, but come on. Fire Lord Ozai and Azula? Nah, these guys look more like Felice Lupalelli on Asai and Aurora Maria Consuela Conchita Patel. Alright, so before I get into my final thoughts, if you liked this movie, check out these movies. They're all based on animes, well, Edge of Tomorrow is based on a manga, but if you're wondering why I didn't recommend the Avatar TV series, it's because if you liked this movie, you obviously don't like things that are actually good. So here's the thing, I think we can all agree that The Last Airbender is objectively a bad film. I mean, that's not even an opinion at this point, it's actually just terrible. They took some 8 hours worth of storytelling from season 1 and tried to condense it down to 1 hour 44 minutes. It was never going to end well. They had Katara doing narration and Zhao being very perceptive, which helped to move the story on quicker, but then so much time was wasted, especially in the beginning, that it just did not matter. Now, I don't want to be one of those guys that compares everything to the source material, because at the end of the day, it was never going to be exactly the same. But I think this is worth mentioning. One of the things that stood out with the series was the character development. You felt like you were getting to know them as they were getting to know Aang and learning about themselves along the way. This movie just kind of throws you in there, skips pretty much all character development, and then tries to make everything seem so urgent. And I feel sorry for these kids, especially Noah Ringer and Nicola Peltz, because they were both pretty inexperienced actors at the time. In fact, this was literally Noah Ringer's first acting gig, and they're being asked to deliver scenes that some professionals would struggle with, so everything is just so awkward a lot of the time. But as bad as this film is, it's not without its charm. I mean, sure, it's not the best storytelling, but it's not so bad that it's just confusing. Well, kinda. I'ma come back to that. Zhao was a pretty well done character until he got the General Hux treatment, and all things considered, it still manages to tell the story relatively faithfully. I know I made a few jokes about the race changes, but to be honest, that bit actually made sense. But if you're gonna change their ethnicities, probably should change their names too. I think one of the biggest problems is because so much story and development is relegated to narration. If you haven't seen the series it's based on, it might be a little confusing on the first watch. And let's keep it all the way 100. Ain't too many people trying to watch this more than once. It's clear that they were planning sequels, and with that in mind, perhaps this should have been a longer movie to give time for the characters to develop, for the story to move at a much more consistent pace, and perhaps, most importantly, to give time to work towards the actors' strengths rather than highlighting their weaknesses. And now that I think about it, M. Night Shyamalan had nearly 20 years of filmmaking experience by the time The Last Airbender was made, so all that awkwardness must have been deliberate, and that's just cruel. I swear, these kids should sue him for making them look bad. But that's what I think of The Last Airbender. What do you think of The Last Airbender? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.